Good morning. It's Friday, May 14th. I'm going to record this right now and post it so you're listening to me moments after I actually spoke. It's been a fun week. A little update on me first. We hired a chief financial officer of our company, and he is crushing it. We're raising money. We just launched a self-storage deal in Connecticut. Raised the money, $800,000 of capital. We raised it in about 2 hours from our current LPs. It's awesome. We're growing fast. We're ready to buy some storage. In an hour, I'm headed to the golf course. I'm going to do some chipping and putting for an hour and then meet my wife for lunch, and we're going to play around to golf. Tomorrow and Sunday is the member golf tournament at the country club. My partner Dan and I are teammates. We're doing a welcome dinner tonight, and then tomorrow we got 3 competitive rounds, and then Sunday we have 2. I'm excited. I'm having so much fun. The country club is one of the best investments I ever made. But today's episode, let's get right to it. Actually, before we do that, I want to talk about the hiring course that I launched. It was a letdown, guys. I put 30 hours of time into structuring and organizing the videos. I think we sold 48. I sold 48 courses at $200 a piece. A big letdown considering the listserv and the podcast shout out and the Twitter post. But the people who bought it are loving it. They said it was awesome. We got some people who are going to implement it. But anyway, you win some, you lose some. I'm sorry if you feel that I'm getting too sales oriented. I'm going to continue to deliver a lot of great content for you guys for free. So hope you can put up with a couple sales pitches every now and then. But I want to talk today about really hard decisions because we are at a transitory, I don't know exactly the word. We're at a point in our business right now where we are making a lot of big changes, guys. We're making a lot of big investments. We've bought $20 million worth of self-storage in the last 6 months. I looked at a podcast episode that I recorded and released to you a year ago. So May 20th, 2020. And our stretch goal at that time was to buy $12 million worth of storage over the next 24 months. We bought $20 million over the last 6. We've raised $7 million of LP capital. We just closed a $13 million deal, half in April and half on Tuesday of this week. The results from our current self-storage facilities are absolutely cranking. And it's on, guys. We got 12 employees now, 4 full-time from the Philippines. I actually have a company that we're working with. I'm gonna share the web address because this company is amazing. Let's see. It's called Shepherd, and these folks are headhunters essentially in the Philippines for customer service, admin, whatever it is. It's called Support Shepherd, SUPPORT SHEPHERD. They find you Philippine talent from the Philippines, and these folks are extremely competent, very good English. They'll work business hours in the United States, and we're talking $5 an hour. I was working to get my customer service rep on board with this because her head of customer service, we hired her about 7 months ago. She's also crushing it. I was like, look, we are growing way too fast. It's really hard to find United States people who want to work right now with the unemployment benefits. We need to do something. Let's try to hire a couple people from the Philippines. So we got in touch with Support Shepherd, and it's SUPPORT SHEPHERD.com if you want to go to their website. We interviewed 3 employees for our customer service role. We're growing with all these self-storage facilities we're hiring. We need more people to move people in and out of units, answer the phones, do collections, things like that. The goal was to hire 1 person from the Philippines and give it a shot. We interviewed 3. Amanda, actually, our head of customer service, interviewed 3. At first, she was pretty hesitant. She's like, Nick, we tried with India, kind of the language barrier was tough. It was a little bit difficult. I said, let's give this a shot. Let's try it. She interviewed 3 people. She hired all 3 of the reps. They make $5 an hour, $900 to $950 a month, and 40 hours a week of excellent talent. I mean, these people are good. It's really awesome. I think we pay Shepherd 30% of their first year salary. So to hire us 3 people, less than $8,000 to get them all onboarded and going. They do the interviews for you. They prep them. They bring you 3 vetted candidates for your position after they've done a lot of personality tests and English tests and all this stuff. Pretty freaking awesome. Anyway, that's big. We've hired 4 people stateside. We're at 12 employees now. We've had to make some really hard decisions lately. Who to hire, how much to pay, who to try to get, what kind of risks we're willing to take, what kind of properties we're willing to go after. And I want to share with you on this episode the framework that we use to talk about and think about these big decisions, my partner and I. And it's called fear setting. The basis is fear setting. Tim Ferriss talked about it in 4-Hour Work Week. I'm sure he got it from somebody else. But the premise is, when you're about to make a really hard decision, you think, all right, it's anxiety producing. An example, we are hiring a head of acquisitions to come on and help us buy self-storage facilities. A badass sales employee. We had to try to go out and get him, convince him to leave his cushy job. He's got a baby on the way. And give him a package that he was comfortable with to come to work for us. Because we know that it will supercharge our business. Well, we think. But there's so many questions around it. Okay, what if this guy gets $75 million in the pipeline, Nick, and you have to close it? You have to raise $20 million of LP capital. Can you do it? I don't know. What if the market turns around and interest rates go up and real estate's messed up and you can't go do real estate anymore? What then? It's another tough one. So it comes down to, when you're making a hard decision, when you're trying to figure out where to invest, when you're trying to make a life change, when you're trying to invest significant cash into a hire, try to get them to make a life change, when you're trying to buy a business, when you're trying to move cities, when you're trying to get certain people out of your life. This can apply to your personal life as well. It's a practice called fear setting. And what we like to do is say, okay, here's our situation. This is what we're trying to do. If we make this decision that we want to make, if we take this chance, what is the absolute worst case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? Let's put it down on paper. Let's think through exactly what it would look like if this all goes wrong. And so, I mean, it's easy to say that, but we actually get out a piece of paper, and my partner and I sit down and we try to think, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, let's say interest rates go to 5% tomorrow and real estate just takes a huge correction. What if the sales guy doesn't work out? What if the business sale falls through, or we regret it, or the business really takes off and we wish we wouldn't have sold it? We write down on paper the worst case scenarios. Financial scenarios, lifestyle scenarios, and we write them down. And what you find when you do this exercise is that the worst case scenario is not that bad. That the risk you're taking, the investment you're making, the chance of all this happening isn't so bad. Just plain and simple. So I encourage you that if you're about to make an investment, if you're about to make a decision, if you're about to make a change, whether it be leaving a job, buying a business, starting a business, hiring somebody, taking on a big client, whatever it may be, when these big decisions come, do some fear setting. Get out a piece of paper, get together with your business partner or your spouse or your mentor or somebody with you, and run through the worst case scenarios. But don't just talk about it. Don't just think about it. Too many people do fear setting in a generic, small way. You need to write it down, because when it's on that paper and you're looking and staring and you can visualize that worst case scenario on paper, you can really wrap your head around it, and it helps. And sometimes the worst case scenario is too bad and you're just taking too big of a risk, and the risk adjusted return is not there for you. Too many people think about risk the wrong way. Think about it like a poker player. Okay, there's X% chance that this happens, and what's my result? There's Y% chance that this other thing happens, and what's my result? If it all goes well, what are my rewards? If it all goes really poorly, what does it cost me? What are the odds of each? It keeps you from making emotional decisions. You can really think, and you're going to have to use a lot of intuition. A lot of times there's no answer. You don't know. You don't know how bad it could get. You don't know how good it could get. You don't know the different scenarios and what could possibly happen. But if you start thinking about it, putting it on paper, visualizing it, and just try to separate yourself emotionally from the fear, the anxiety, the stress. Because as an entrepreneur, the fear, the anxiety, the stress is a big deal. There's something called, there's a hormone that hits you at night, and I tweeted the other day about the night thoughts. The night thoughts it's a scenario for entrepreneurs. It happens to me, and I tweeted, and it happens to many other people as well, that in the evenings, when you're asleep, you'll wake up in the night, and all of a sudden, the problems seem bigger. The stresses seem huge. The things that you need to worry about seem like emergencies. Oh, this could happen. Oh, that could happen. It's bad. This could be terrible. And then what I do is I write them down on paper. I'm like, okay, I'm really worried about the sprinkler system over at this self-storage facility. Okay, I'm really worried about the appraisal that's coming in on this job. Wake up in the morning, the sun comes out, I get my cup of coffee, walk out on the porch, sit down, look at my piece of paper that I wrote down those problems on. I'm going to think on these for a little while. Almost always, it's almost laughable that I was worried enough to stay up and that those cost me sleep. There's a hormone that hits you in the night that drastically impacts the way that you perceive problems and risks, and it's an emotion. And if you make emotional decisions while you're scared, excited, angry, drunk, whatever it may be, if you make decisions when you're in an emotional state and you can't think clearly, then you're going to make poor decisions, period. So fear setting, writing down these problems, it helps me separate the anxiety from the wins, the fear from the gain, the ego. A lot of time it happens the other way. There's ego and there's greed, and it blinds you, especially when you make a couple really good decisions. There's nothing more dangerous than being an entrepreneur who's had a couple really big wins that were kind of lucky. Because when you get kind of lucky and you have had a couple things really work well for you, and it's happened to me, I've had some wins, I've made some money, we're doing well right now, you start to think that you're a badass. You start to think nothing I do is wrong, everybody else is wrong, I can't be wrong, I can't lose. And that's when the ego becomes the enemy. And instead of the self-doubt and the fear that most entrepreneurs have in the beginning that holds them back, you get the ego. And that ego just causes you to take unnecessary risk-reward scenarios. What's the worst thing that can happen? You see Bill Hwang, the investor that had everything going for him, had a $100 billion fund and had it over-levered, and all it took was one little thing for it all to come toppling down, and he lost everything. He didn't do any fear setting. His ego clouded his judgment, and he made a really bad decision. It happens to people all the time. This can happen both ways. Fear setting can make you feel comfortable with a decision, or it could be like, oh my God, I was an idiot for even considering that. So that's what I'm gonna leave you with. Try to separate your decision making from your emotions. If you're angry, if you're scared, if you're desperate, if you're drinking alcohol, those can all really, really cloud your ability to make clear, crisp, and good decisions. So try to separate it. Do the work. Try fear setting. Do some analysis on the poker player mentality and make some better decisions. It'll help you in the long run.